to order the Indian River County Hospital District Board of Trustees meeting here in the Indian River County Commission Chambers Room, February 20th. I'd like to start with invocation by Reverend Michael Oxner from the Calvary Chapel at Vero Beach.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you. Gracious Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for our community. We're thankful for the health care that we have and the people that administer it. Father, we pray for your wisdom and guidance for the board as they consider the matters before them. We pray, God, that you would instill a sense of peace and congeniality. Lord, we know that every good and perfect gift comes from you, Lord, and that your care for your people is unchanging. Father, we pray for just wisdom and discernment as the board considers the matters before them, Lord, and that you would bless the community and bless the actions of this board. And we ask these things now in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll proceed now with the consent agenda, which are the minutes from December 18th and 19th and January 16th. Are there any changes or suggestions related to these minutes?
And the disbursement of.
And the disbursement, thank you, of $1,688,044.32.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the agenda and consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now going on to reports, we'd like to first start with a proclamation related to the Senior Resource Association. Proclamation of March 2025 as a month of celebrating the Older Americans Active Nutrition Program. Whereas on March 22nd, 1972, President Nixon signed into law a measure that amended the Older Americans Act of 1965 to include a national nutrition programs for individuals 60 and older. Whereas for more than 50 years, this landmark law has helped to fund community-based organizations like Meals on Wheels, and is still the only federal program designed specifically to meet the nutritional and social needs of older adults. Whereas each Meal on Wheels program from across the country joined together for the March on Meals awareness campaign to celebrate its success and garner the support needed to ensure these critical programs can continue to address food insecurity and malnutrition, combat social isolation, enable independence, and improve health for years to come. Whereas Meals on Wheels program, both congregate and home delivered in Indian River County, has served our community admirably for over 50 years, and in the past years provided more than 144,000 meals to 842 clients. And whereas the past year approximately 300 individuals have volunteered over 20,000 hours delivering nutritious meals to our seniors and individuals with disability, helping them maintain their health and independence. And whereas Meals on Wheels programs in Indian River County provide nutritious meals to seniors throughout Indian River County that help them maintain their health and independence, thereby helping to prevent unnecessary falls, hospitalizations, and/or premature institutionalization. And whereas the senior population is increasing substantially, and the action is needed now to support local Meals on Wheels programs throughout the state, federal, and local funding, volunteering, donations, raising awareness to ensure these vital services can continue to be delivered for years to come. Now, therefore, the Indian River County Hospital District does hereby proclaim March 2025 as a month celebrating the Older Americans Act Nutrition Program and urges every community member to take this month to honor our Meals on Wheels programs. the seniors they serve, and the volunteers who care for them.
Mr. Chairman, we could all agree that this is not a contentious issue, so we can let Karen stay in here with us.
This, yes,
No vote
duly
taken
noted.
here.
No vote.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you for that proclamation. I'm Robin Orzel, the Chief Development Officer with Senior Resource Association. So our Meals on Wheels programs are dedicated to promoting the health and well-being of seniors in Indian River County. And March is a very important month for SRA as we join thousands of Meals on Wheels programs across the country to raise awareness of senior hunger and isolation. Meals on Wheels is a lifeline for countless adults in our community, and the number continues to grow. In 2024, we served over 144,000 meals, and that is actually 35% more than we did the previous year. Today, there are still 510 seniors on the wait list, but thanks to philanthropic funding, we're able to feed almost all of them while they wait. Particularly, funding from the Indian River County Hospital District seeded this initiative to clear the wait list and has since moved the needle significantly. So our many thanks to all of you. Our home delivery meal program helps alleviate hunger by providing hot, nutritious meals delivered by SRA staff and volunteers to our clients 5 days every week, and 2 frozen meals for the weekend. All menus are planned by a registered dietitian to ensure they contain 1/3 of the daily nutritional value that seniors require. But this program is more than delivering a meal. It's a daily wellness check. Our visits provide seniors and their families with a sense of security and allow them to live a more healthy and independent life in their own home. Sadly, far too many of our seniors, this visit is the only social interaction they experience until the volunteer visits them tomorrow for their next meal. Providing more than 600 meals each day could not be accomplished without the dedication, the time, and the effort of over 200 devoted volunteers. So we'd like to take a moment and share with you a video of the impact Meals on Wheels has on our aging friends and neighbors.
I broke my hip. That's the first time I broke my hip 3 times, but the first time I broke my hip, which is the left hip, and I had to go to therapy, and I wasn't able to stand and take and cook. My doctor told me about Senior Resources. I called Senior Resources and I was telling them my situation, and they jumped right on it. I've been getting Meals on Wheels for 7 years or more. My volunteers, I know them by name, they come and they bring me my lunch. 5 days a week, they always come in. They know where the fridge is at. And on the 5th day, they always cover me for Saturday and Sunday. The most important thing that I received from Senior Resources was my emergency band and the one that I wear around my neck. And it's very good because I had to push it when I fell on the floor. I've had 3 broken hips, 2 broken femurs, brain tumor, 2 back surgeries, broken tibia, broken fibia. I'm a very much independent woman, and I love to do things myself. But when you can't do it, it's very depressing. I worked since I was 15. I went to school and worked. I went into the medical profession because I love it. Never had help from the government, never had food stamps. Even after I had the brain tumor, I took care of my children. I sent them off to school. You know how thankful I am to Senior Resources? I'm very thankful because there's times when I don't have food to eat. But when you got someone and you got an organization like Senior Resources that will step in and say, it's okay. It's okay, we got you. It's okay, we got you. That is a momentous occasion for me because they got me.
Obviously, we need to ensure that this critical program can continue to address food insecurity and malnutrition, combat social isolation, enable independence, and improve health for years to come. On March 10th, 12th, and 13th, SRA is hosting March for Meals. It's a wonderful opportunity for public leaders like yourselves and members of our community to experience the gratification of delivering a delicious, nutritious meal to our homebound seniors. Now, many of you have participated in the past, and my hope is that you will join us again this year. I know that they would love to meet a special guest, and I would like to call out Michael Kint for already signing up, so thank you, and Don Carboni as well has already signed up, so hopefully you will all join them. So thank you again for your financial support, this proclamation, and for allowing us a few minutes to speak on behalf of the hundreds of seniors that we serve every day and those who will need our help in the future.
Thank you so very much for what you do for Senior Resource and the
Hey, we
Meals
got
on
you.
Wheels program. Yes, yes. I got it in the mail too, the invitation, so sign up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a
Can we
question?
get a picture taken? Oh, you have a question, yes.
Yeah, the proclamation referred to this as a federal program,
That's correct.
and yet the district is needed in this community to support it, to get your backlog unfilled. Why does the federal government not pay more to Indian River County to balance your needs? What percentage of your budget is federal?
What percentage of the budget? It's a large percentage, I can tell you that. The money that we receive from the federal government actually is for the entire state of Florida, and it is divided up by districts. And when you have Miami and you have Palm Beach and then you have Indian River County, it's allocated, I believe, based on the size of the community and the number of people that you serve. So unfortunately, we're not getting enough money to feed everybody. And the money that we receive doesn't always cover the total cost as well. So that's why we look to philanthropy and other organizations to help support that, so that
Yeah,
not only.
thank you. I asked that question because it underscores that one of the roles of the district was to solve local problems locally, because there just isn't enough resources nationally or even statewide to go around. So thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
Any comments?
We
Thank
get a
you
picture?
again. Oh, a picture.
Certificate.
I mean, I just did it, we've gotta get it signed.
I have it signed here. Here.
But I can't make one. Just hold it, yeah.
Do we vote? Do we vote on it?
What are we doing?
Ready? 1, 2, 3. That looks good, thank you. We'll get you something.
Kate did remind me that there is another meeting here at 5:30, so we'll move along with our agenda with that in mind, because we do have to be dismissed at 5:30. So next, our district council report from Jennifer Peschke.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cooney. It's been another busy month with the district as we embarked on the beginning of the new year. I've done a lot of the things I do for the board every month, responded to your questions as they arise. Of course, review the deadlines and deliverables due under the lease and the member substitution agreement between the district and Indian River Cleveland Clinic. I also participated in a special meeting to discuss the process we're going to follow this coming year for our upcoming funding cycle. That process is still kind of being evaluated and further vetted Also participated and assisted with some strategic planning efforts and continue to remain available to each of you in this regard. We're also working, as we discussed yesterday, on some internal policies to ensure they're up to date and compliant with current laws for the board and just for our internal processes to be better documented. So continuing to work through those and bring you those in final form that we introduced yesterday in draft, and some other ones with regard to our conflict of interest policy that I'm still going to be bringing before you for your review and consideration. Also, I sent you on, let me see, February 6th, the initial outline of the research that was requested of me at the December 19th meeting regarding conflicts of interest with regard to the ex officio board member position that our board chair is able to sit on the board of the Indian River Cleveland Clinic Hospital Board pursuant to the terms of our 2018 lease as amended and restated. So I've circulated that to each of you for review. In my correspondence, I also indicated that really I believe the next steps in this process, however we move forward, does need to involve a discussion with the hospital council. One, to make them aware of the matter and the issue that we're reviewing, and to collaborate efforts so that our district chair can effectively fulfill the role comfortably and understanding where any potential conflicts may arise and what that person, he or she, currently he, will need to do so that he's able to fulfill his duty as an ex officio member to that board, but also as a trustee to this board. So still, I've got a call set with Barbara Del Castillo, who is the hospital counsel, in the beginning of March. I did take the earliest date that was offered to me, and so I will be bringing you more on that once we've spoken. My intent through this process would be to have some really good guidelines for the chair that's serving as the ex officio member to follow, and to create some sort of an approved report that he can bring back each month to our board to be in full transparency with what he is permitted to share in his role. So that's some of the things that we've been working on in that regard. And then I did also receive, or not I, but the district office received the resignation letter from John Moore, who is currently a district-appointed member on the Commitment Integrity Committee that was put in place under the member substitution agreement from 2018. I provided you also this past month, February 20th, with, I'm sorry, not February 20th. Let's see here. What is the date of that? January 24th, actually, with the process to fill the vacant position on the Integrity Committee. So really what that is, just to remind everyone, the Integrity Committee is comprised of 4 members, 2 chosen by CCRH and 2 appointed by the district's board. When a district board appointed member of this committee resigns or it's vacated for one reason or another, the district board has to follow the procedure to fill the vacancy. Currently, Karen Deagle is one of our appointed members, so the vacancy cannot be filled by a trustee. What needs to happen to fill the vacancy is notification of the resignation. So in your packet, you have a copy of the letter that Dr. Cooney, as our board chair, received from John Moore, dated January 9th. And then either the Integrity Committee should issue a request of the district board to call for nominations, or in any event, we would need to, a motion, and a second, and move forward with a call for nominations for a new Integrity Committee member made by the district board. So that would be my recommendation at this point, that we make a motion tonight to do that so that we can move that process forward. Again, the vacant position needs to be selected by a majority of the district board. No more than 1 district trustee can act in the capacity of the Integrity Committee. So again, that's why I said it can't be a trustee. And then the candidates have to be nominated and approved in a public open meeting by our board, following Article 3, Section 3 of our bylaws. This can occur at a regular or special meeting as allowed by our bylaws. Once approved by the district board, the Integrity Committee will be notified of the appointed member and provide them with the necessary orientation and information to fulfill their duty.
What is the nature of the advertising or promotion for the availability of the position? What obligation do we have?
Well, it's not really a bid process or anything like that. I think we would make a call for nominations. We would set a time period for those to be submitted. to the district office, probably through Frank, our executive director. And then we would notice a public meeting that we're gonna discuss that at and determine who our nominee is gonna be based on majority vote. I mean, certainly, this has not been done before.
Yeah.
So,
And I think we discussed that it doesn't necessarily have to be an attorney.
no, it doesn't at all have to be an attorney, by any means. It can be any member of the community, you know.
What is the role and purpose of the committee?
Let's see, the purpose of the committee is essentially, and I'll let Karen chime in too, since she's on the committee, but the purpose of the committee, the reason it was created was to ensure that the documents are being fulfilled, the terms within the lease and the member substitution are being upheld. And so that's why it's called the Commitment Integrity Committee, making sure that the operator of the hospital is fulfilling the commitments they made in those documents. And maybe Karen can chime in on, you know, how often they meet and the time commitment.
We meet on a quarterly basis usually, and we ask for reports from the hospital, give us updates as to how everything is being managed towards that 10-year period of time. And so at this point, everything is on track, and yeah, it's just meeting on a quarterly basis and getting the report from the hospital.
And it's as to their performance of the quarterly, or the capital improvements.
That is correct.
Right, so it's just limited to capital improvement.
That as well as the commitment about the services that we have asked them to continue to provide, such as behavioral health, the prenatal, or the maternity, sorry,
For that 10-year period?
that 10-year period, exactly.
When is the next meeting?
Roughly in the next, I think it's in the next month.
We're not gonna.
Let me check, sorry.
It's the commitment of the 250 million over 10 years, and then 5 services. So inpatient, outpatient oncology, inpatient, outpatient cardiac, maternity, behavioral health services, and gastroenterology.
So the action would be to proceed with the public announcement and then have members of the trustees come forward with their recommendations, and then we'll go forward from there, selecting an individual.
Yes.
March 5th is the next one, as I see it. Yep, March 5th.
Thank you very much, Jennifer.
So I was just gonna recommend that we do a motion on that to call for nominations and proceed with this process, and I think we need to put a timeline on it.
March 7th, perhaps?
March 7th is 2 weeks from today's date. We don't have to do that, it's just a recommendation, because we wanna get some nominations in place, so that you can move forward with this, I would think, by your next monthly meetings, what are the March dates? I don't have those in front of me.
The actual nominations would have to be during an actual,
Yes, we'd have to discuss them at a meeting, so, we just wanna try to manage the process so we keep everybody on track, really, that's the goal.
So if we had it within the next 2 weeks, then we would have the ability to review those nominations and be able to make a decision at our March chairman's meeting or March regular meeting.
Right, so the thought is, if you get the nominations to me, I'll collect them all, and
It will all be
by the
public.
7th, this is all public, of course.
And when we're nominating a person, I would suggest that not just hand a person's name in. Maybe you should have a bio attached to that, so we know the background of that person.
Great point,
And their willingness to participate.
right, the desire.
Absolutely.
Okay, can we have a vote on this and a recommendation?
Do we need to vote on that process? I don't know.
So yes, I think at this point, we need a motion to make a call for nominations for a new district-appointed integrity committee member for the vacant position to be filled by a majority vote of the district board.
So moved.
Second.
Can we put the criteria in there that the nominations will include a bio, will include an interest by the nominated person to serve in this capacity, availability? Obviously, if we get a nomination from the public of themselves or others, you know, we hope that that would be included as well. We don't want to have a lot of folks that we go and talk to and they don't have any desire to do.
Yes. I
With
would say
those
amend the
caveats.
motion with those inclusions that Carrie just stated.
Second? We need a second.
Dr. Mackett, will you second that amendment?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay.
And Jennifer, I want to thank you for the memo, the February 6th memo regarding the ex officio participation by the chairman and Cleveland Clinic's local board. Two observations, though. The first one's going to be kind of wonky. And I agree with your suggestion at the end of it says the parties could suggest a discussion with drafters of the member substitution agreement to determine the intent and rationale. In other words, at the time that this was done, what was the purpose? I think that will provide guidance, but not necessarily direction. And my concern in reading that is the suggestions from whoever they are going to maybe inform the process, but not direct the process, because there's a concept out there, the parole evidence rule, that a document that is complete can't be modified or I'll say interpreted through extraneous information or documents. So it's going to stand on its own, but when we start looking at how we want to address it, that information is going to be helpful. So that's just a cautionary word. And then secondly, at our next meeting, I'm probably going to bring up the possibility of us asking for an attorney general opinion on the topic. The reason being is it's going to be a disinterested, removed third party giving us input as well. And I noted that there's been no attorney general opinion on point, according to Karen. It might be just to raise the level of best practices, if you will, to seek that. I'm not looking for action right now. I'm just bringing it up right now so that it can be part of our discussion at the chairman's meeting, perhaps next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Certainly, I mean, their attorney general opinions are issued for a reason when there's a question on an issue in a matter of law. I do know Attorney Alan Polakowicz, who was the district counsel for a long time. Several attorneys before me did request some attorney general opinions years and years ago. And so that's been done before on behalf of the hospital district. Those are out there for different issues. So it's certainly a process we can follow if the board so chooses.
And she's done most of the work, quite honestly, with the memo that she's done, so.
So that would go into the letter
Yeah.
with the request. There's a process to submit that, and if you'd like to facilitate that, we can discuss that more and we can take that step.
Okay, anything further, Jennifer, for us?
Nothing for me, unless there's other questions for me.
Any questions for our attorney? Hearing none, let's move on with our financial statement review. Michael Kent, Treasurer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Fellow trustees, 4 months into the fiscal year, it's my pleasure to report that the hospital district's finances continue to be very solid. And as usual, let's take a closer look at the January financials by reviewing the cash and investment snapshot and the year-to-date versus actual expense spreadsheets, which are the last 4 pages of the financial section in your board packet. However, yours truly must admit, 4 months in, I made my first mistake. So in front of you was an amended last page of the expense sheet. It's corrected. What I forgot to fix was the comparable, literally the last line item from 23-24, but we'll get to that in a minute. So let's start 4 pages from the back with the district's investment and cash snapshot. I know that's usually the last page of the financial section, but we just shook it up a little this month. At the top, you'll see that as of January 31st, we had received $18,808,126 of ad valorem taxes. That's 88.9% of what is budgeted. And as a point of reference, last fiscal year at this time, we'd received 85%, so we're a little bit ahead of where we were last fiscal year. Section 1 on this report updates our U.S. Treasury holdings, which total $7,981,911. As you know, the maturity dates for the laddered, the staggered monthly T-bills between now and September 25th are listed there. And if you take a close look at the rates on these T-bills, you will notice that they've been ratcheting downward. Trustees who have been on the board for the past couple of years, and perhaps Alan and Dr. Mackett are in the know, but we were very fortunate for the past couple years or more. You'll remember those rates were really sweet. We were averaging around or above 5%. Section 2 in this report updates the district's holdings in the preferred deposit pool. That's a money market account. You see that as of the end of January, it held $11,150,613, and it shows there that that current rate is at 4.26. Also, that used to run above 5%. And Section 3 towards the bottom shows that we're holding $685,608 in the local bank accounts at the end of January. So altogether, the district's investment and cash holdings total $19,818,132. Now, the next page in your packet begins the year-to-date expenses versus budget. You'll note on the header for the two right columns that at the 4-month point in the fiscal year, an even monthly distribution of expenditures would have everybody at 33.3% for all of our programs, the agencies, and our administrative costs. Scanning the report, you're going to see deviations that range from 0% to 134%. Now, having said that, the vast majority are within a reasonable range. But let me speak to a handful which very clearly stand out. Under the Visiting Nurse Association, hospice house / home hospice care is at 95.4% of what was budgeted for the year. Dr. Mackett inquired about this last month when we were at 67%, and I couldn't really respond to the reason for the elevated expenses then, but I did subsequently ask Jenny and Frank to please make an inquiry to VNA, drill down on the reasons for the exceptionally high costs at 3 and 4 months in. And I'm going to ask one of them just to give that update at this point.
Sure. Jenny, why don't you go
Okay.
ahead and start, and I'll jump in.
Yeah, so we looked at the data and went to VNA to inquire about this. It does look like they are, obviously, it's been an increase in patients and as well as an inpatient of in days at the hospice center. So what I've looked at for this year, to do kind of a comparison from the first quarter of last year to this year, 23-24, they had 24 patients at a rate of 521 days for the total year, okay? So for the total 23 to 24. So that's like an average of 2 patients a month at a stay of like 21 days average, okay? So this year, for the 4 months, we were already at 27 patients at 365 days. So that's an average of 6 patients a month and an average of 13 days per patient. So, you know, they're continuing this trend, they're identifying these people, and, you know, unfortunately, there's some situations where they don't have a place to go or anyone to care for them, so they are at the hospice house.
So they have, let me just jump in and say, so they've been able to get more folks they have more folks that have been referred into the program, but from a length of stay perspective, they actually had a higher length of stay last year than they did this year. So that's the first piece of it.
Yep.
And they also obviously all qualify for district.
They
They
are
are
all district qualified
district-qualified.
folks. Yep.
Yep, and we verified that on the invoice because they give
Right.
us the HD
No.
number.
We're going to see this happen more and more because we've got the baby boomer bubble that's kind of moving along, and you're going to be seeing a lot more unfortunate terms in the future, until that last baby boomer is gone, me.
So with that, you can see that they're going to exceed their funding, you know. In fact, they only have a roughly $8,000 left in the hospice budget. But what we do as a district is we do the overall budget. So we are going to be continuing to watch this and watch to where they get to reach their budget, and then they'll be coming back and requesting additional funding.
Thank you, staff. Another one I'd point out is Treasure Coast Community Health. You know this, but you see mobile dental care and mobile medical care are basically at 0%. However, at the last couple of chairmen's meetings, Vicki Soulé has spoken about the situation with those programs, so we are aware of that. And also for TCCH and Whole Family Health, you'll see that LIP is at 0%. Those payments aren't usually billed and paid until later in the fiscal year. I think it was later than normal last year, but they'll be coming up in the next few months. LIP is a low-income pool program that we have responsibility for. It's just until we are invoiced for that, it doesn't get paid. There's a catch-all also in the community support / other item, and that's at 63.9% right now. I wanted to point out that there have been a couple of specific and larger expenditures that needed to be placed somewhere, and you approved them. One was when Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network pulled funding for those 4 preventative mental health, behavioral health programs. We stepped in with some gap funding. And secondly, following the tornadoes, we made a contribution to the United Way's Disaster Relief Fund. Well, those are embodied in what a large part of that money is. New Horizons. Now, there are 7 programs there. However, I believe that following the in-depth discussions, the agency review that was led by Trustee Bartlett here, when we funded this agency, we basically told them to take the $200,000 and to utilize them as fully as they can wherever they needed it. So, I mean, they're well under in terms of total as an agency budget, but you'll see some are high and some are low. And lastly, in the admin budget for the hospital district, you'll see auditing is at almost 105%. Bottom line, we just received and paid the invoice from Jacoby Handley for their audit work. It was paid in full, and it was slightly more than was budgeted. That's not balanced over the year. It's paid when it's received. So, again, there might be others, and we can look at them, but I wanted to kind of focus on the ones that were clearly out of the norm. On the middle of the last page, the new last page, although it's the same on the old last page, of the spreadsheet, you'll find that the total for all program expenses through January was $5,550,725. That computes to 29.4% of the approved total program budget. And the bottom half of that third page shows that the district's administrative expenses through January totaled $473,633, which is at 34% of the approved budget. And combined total program and admin expenses totaled $6,004,358, or 29.7% of the budget. Where I had made my mistake was on that last line, but the one that was put in front of you today is accurate. So as a point of comparison, at this point last year in the fiscal year, our total expenses were at 29.9, so we're tracking just about the same. Lastly, I also want to give you a heads up that there's going to be some reclassifications of some expenses that are fundamentally melded into existing line items. in the admin budget that have to do with the costs incurred of the Women's Sober Living Facility. The reclassification is going to turn those into capital expenses. There's about, if I got this wrong, jump in, Frank, but I think you said it's about $35,000 that has been melded into those existing line items that'll get capitalized along with some larger ones that are coming down the pike. And we didn't talk, but I'm assuming that we should be able to get this done before next month.
Yeah, I expect so.
Yeah, it's not huge, but there'll be a little reclassification of that so that it's accurate. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm concluding my report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Yeah, thank you, Michael and Jenny, for clarifying on Visiting Nurse Association. I appreciate that. Just one question for my own edification. With the closure of Suncoast Mental Health, will those budgeted funds just be returned to our general funds?
Yes, I mean, at the end of the year, and as I think you know, I know you knew, but over the last 3 years, we've in fact, to manage the budgets that we've approved, we've been dipping into our reserves to about $4 million, I think, in the last 3 years. So one of the ways that you can replenish it a little is if there are dollars that are left unexpended with any programs. So yeah, I mean, they're not returned, they become available, and they can be used in other ways as well. We alluded to it yesterday, and I think at the prior month too with the chairman's meetings, that there was a significant amount of money that's budgeted and approved for TCCH's mobile units. So, I mean, there are going to be any number of places, but as you've also heard, there are going to undoubtedly be some folks coming to us who are going to be asking for us to give some assistance beyond what was budgeted at the start of the year. So, right. But yeah, in the end, yes.
I had a question too regarding the Sunshine Mental Health. So we've paid out to them $45,719. We're just not going to pay out any more money because.
No, they're gone.
We cut our last check to them today for $1,500.
Okay.
That was closing everything out.
Any other questions for our treasurer, who always does an excellent job?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Let's go on to our executive director report. Frank Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be brief in the interest of time. My report was quite lengthy. I'm just going to give a few updates, and then we're going to have some staff updates here. First, just exploring some non-tax revenue supported district goals and objectives. Over the past few weeks, working with Thrive and Mental Health Collaborative, looking at a comprehensive opioid stimulant and substance use program, acronym COSSUP. This is a federal grant. So this is a grant that helps address substance use disorders, particularly opioid and stimulant addiction. Now, in this case, for this grant, the district or the county is eligible to the applicant. So this is different than some of the other examples I used. Is the district itself is applying for the grant on behalf of the district, and then we take those dollars in and we can apply them and put them to work in the community. This is a different model, and quite honestly, until Carrie approached me from Thrive, I didn't even know this existed. This is a model where there are certain grants that the organizations in our community that meet the needs that we're serving that they can't apply for. However, with us, with the district involved or the county involved, they need a governmental agency for the application. So this was something that could potentially bring hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and there's going to be several examples in the future. They offer multi-year funding. However, this is one of the grants that is frozen right now, so we're not going to be applying for it at the moment. But in that same vein, we did obtain, and this is a follow-up item, 2 grant writer proposals for folks to help us assist us in identifying and securing this federal funding and perhaps some other state funding, which we're reviewing right now. So on Suncoast, jump into Suncoast for a second, We had our final meeting with all the local organizations who did a wonderful job once again, just like with UF. Everyone stepped up. The patients, all the patients were transitioned, and a lot of the therapists, I think with the exception of one, were kept in our county, and some of the staff. So I really appreciate the support. It's really great when we pull those meetings together, and the response we get is really phenomenal. Next item, we've got some changes in our processes this year on a letter of intent, which is new, and our funding application. So the district, along with Trustee Bartlett, worked through a couple meetings last week, making sure that folks understand the process. It's a new process, letter of intent for new organizations or existing organizations who have new programs. And, you know, we're looking for folks to shift to fee-for-service as well, creating new dashboards and reporting mechanisms. So it was really, we had two very productive meetings with some real good feedback, and hopefully the feedback will continue to come in. The point of this is really to have a discussion. This is a transition that we need to do, we're mandated to do, we have to do, and we're looking for quantitative measures that are going to help drive our goals and objectives. But it's something that, you know, we're working in a process through a transition, because this is the first time in 65 years the district has ever had, we're actually mandated to have a requirement to report our quantitative progress on December 1st of every year. So that's new. And the only other thing I wanted to mention before I'm going to look to staff to give some updates is I did receive the responses as promised. I had mentioned within 60 days we will have the follow-up from Cleveland Clinic Indian River Hospital. I did receive the responses to the questions by Dr. Rothman. He had sent me a quick email this morning and just said he had to make a couple changes and he was going to get the final. He wanted to update a couple things and get the final to me tomorrow morning. So I will have those out to the trustees tomorrow, those responses. And that's all I have for now. A couple other updates. Kate, perhaps speak to the Women's Sober Living residents, please.
Sure, thanks, Frank. Frank and I have been working on this project. Right now, we're in really good shape as far as the building and the upgrades. A lot has been done. I've been working with Lambert Commercial Realty, who's the property manager. Bielka specifically, she and I have a great working relationship, and the landscaping has been done. The grounds have been cleaned up. We've removed a lot of the unused and furniture that's not going to, you know, we don't need, and it's really coming together nicely. The biggest, you know, next step would be the replacement and changing of the air conditioning in Building 650. When we had the inspection, there was significant mold damage done to that building, and so right now it's really not great to be going in and out of. So we're having that done along with some cleaning, and we are following the process to get bids, procure bids for that, which Jennifer has outlined for us. So because it's a costly expense. So we're on track. The next thing, Frank and I have met with a couple consultants about the development of an RFP and some additional information for you all to consider once we get to that step in this process. And then as far as, do you want me to say anything about VCOM?
Oh, sure, give the VCOM.
Okay, Frank and I met with representatives from VCOM, I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago. They're still waiting for the approval with the Florida legislature to be included on the bill as a medical education center here in the state. So it's taking a little bit longer than they thought, but they're still, you know, invested in our partnership. They have paid the taxes for the building and are continuing to reimburse us for the expenses. That's all.
Yeah, well done, thank you. I just wanted to add one other thing. When it comes to developing the RFP, we wanted to be sure that we considered, there's a lot to consider, and I just wanted to be sure that we did a very thorough job of ensuring that we get the best proposals possible. To do that, we have to make sure that we have a very thorough and thoughtful RFP. So it may take us a little bit more time, but I'd rather it be right than fast. Let me see. Did any other team members have anything to report? If not, that's fine. I do. Okay, Dawn.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update on district audit reports. Recently, I sent out 2 audit reports for district-funded agencies, Tykes and Teens and New Horizons. Both of those audits were particularly complex, and they took a lot longer than usual. So I did work very closely with both organizations' management teams to address some recommendations in my draft report that I sent them before the report was finalized and distributed to the trustees. So we did work really closely together to get all of the information and, any changes and recommendations that were significant remained in the reports. However, there were certain things that were corrected that, that I was able to take off of those reports. Both organizations responded to my recommendations within the 30-day time frame that they have to respond, and they submitted action plans as we require. If anybody would like a copy of any of those action plans, I'm happy to provide them. I just don't want to overload everybody with paperwork. And I did want to inform the trustees that New Horizons has contracted with Citrin Cooperman for finance and accounting services, and they have a consultant on site working with management and their board of directors to provide direct support for finance and accounting. I did receive a note from the consultant, Christopher Baker, and he says, and I will quote, "Significant financial work has been completed to improve the New Horizons financial position, which is evidenced by improved financial results." Their financial audit was due to the district by December 31st. They did ask for an extension. Their CPA firm requested the extension. And I am happy to report that this morning I received the final copy of their audited financial statements, and they have absolutely no findings and no weaknesses in internal controls. So they received a clean audit. So for those of you who aren't aware, they've received a going concern audit for 2 years now. So this was a huge milestone for them to get a clean audit. So I definitely wanted to share that with all of the trustees.
And unqualified, you said?
Yeah. And I am happy. I didn't receive any comments or questions back on either one of the audit reports, so I just wanted to say, if there are any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me or shoot me an email, and I'm happy to answer anything in regards to those.
I would just like to kind of add on to Frank's ED report. I would like to thank Frank and Carrie, Trustee Bartlett, for their attendance at the 2 information session meetings. As luck would have it, I came down with laryngitis and I couldn't speak, so I wasn't. What's that?
Funny how that
I
happened.
know. But yeah, so I wasn't attending the first day because I really was trying to save and preserve my voice, and then the second day it came back a little bit until I tried to speak, and then it just squeaked. So, if that's a word, squeaked, I don't know. But anyway, I just want to thank you. The process went, I felt very well. We had about 50 attendants for over the 2 days. Like the meeting that we had with you for the special meeting on February 3rd, we went through each of the 2 documents, the letter of intent and the application, and went, question by question, basically, to, because there were several new agencies and new participants, so it was very important for them to hear this. And Frank provided some examples for the goals, and talking about the quantitative measures and to show the impact that, aligns with our goals. And so that was all said and done. And he also provided a sample of the semi-annual report that we showed you yesterday at yesterday's meeting. So, and I received some very good feedback. Trustee Bartlett helped put together a survey, like a 6-question survey, and that went out by SurveyMonkey to the attendants. And I've gotten some back. It's not quite done yet, but the response I've seen so far is very positive. So thank you again for helping with my voice not being there.
Thank you, Jeff.
Other questions for our executive director?
Couple of questions, Frank. The RFP process for the consultants, Can you share what you've received two proposals back from?
So we didn't receive the proposal. So what we did was we had conversations and we met with two organizations who specialize in what we do. And so what they offered to do was to send us a proposal to assemble all the considerations around things we would need to include in the RFP. So the thought would be to start with experts who know more about this than we do, to say, okay, with this RFP, all the things we're going to need to consider from a revenue perspective, from a liability perspective. I just want to make sure we're very thorough in the RFP that we're going to develop. So step one is seeing what their proposals like to develop the RFP and what they would include. Step two would be contracting someone to actually do the RFP. But the first point of this is just us educating ourselves so we can educate the board and just make sure we're all on the same page with expectations, liability, understanding, cash flow, all of it.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask is, but we'll be part of that process?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
Also, could I see the proposals on the grant writers?
Absolutely, absolutely, sure.
Thank you.
One recommendation I have with the RFP process is that once it's completed, there would be an educational session with the trustees about what you can and can't do once the RFP goes out for bid, because there is a cone of
Yes.
silence and
Good point.
a whole process, and so if we can put that in place with Jennifer, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, indulge me with my tradition of reading an impact story.
We have time.
Okay, I'll move quickly. This story tonight, we're going to call Sarah's story. This is Tykes Teens. So at just 14 years old, Sarah has already faced more adversity than many experience in a lifetime. Growing up in a home filled with conflict and uncertainty, she struggled to trust those around her, especially her father, whose own mental health challenges created further instability. Amid the turmoil, Sarah took on the role of protector for her younger brothers, shielding them from the chaos while silently carrying the weight of her own pain. When Sarah first came to Tykes Teens, she was overwhelmed by feelings of anger, sadness, and hopelessness. She often lashed out, struggled with self-harm, and found it difficult to stay motivated at school. But with the guidance of a compassionate therapist, Sarah found a space where she could safely explore her emotions and begin the process of healing. Through cognitive behavioral therapy, she learned to recognize the connections between her thoughts, feelings, and actions, gaining the tools she needed to navigate her emotions in a healthier way. Tykes Teens also worked closely with Sarah's family, helping them develop strategies to create a more stable and supportive home environment. Over time, Sarah's hard work and the support of her care team led to remarkable progress. As of this week, she has gone 8 weeks without a major outburst, follows a structured routine with her mom's encouragement, and is thriving in a school that provides personalized support and positive reinforcement. Sarah's transformation would not have been possible without the critical support of the Indian River County Hospital District. The district's investment in Tykes Teens ensures that young people like Sarah have access to life-changing mental health services, services that provide not only crisis intervention, but also long-term guidance needed for lasting recovery. Today, Sarah is more engaged at home and school, continues to attend therapy, and is building a future filled with hope and possibility. Her story is a testament to the resilience of young people and the power of community-driven mental health support. Thanks to the district's commitment, Tykes Teens is making a profound difference, one child, one family, one future at a time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all those insights. Just one comment, Kate, regarding VICOM, to include Dr. Mackett, who is our liaison, our trustee liaison with VICOM. So he's
Absolutely.
happy
Yeah.
with the
I think
VICOM process.
that was the meeting was after those appointments, but
Okay.
we would be happy to.
Okay.
Indeed.
Okay, moving along, we have three semi-annual reports, written reports only. We've discussed that we'll do just those written reports unless one of the trustees feels they'd like to have the facility, the agency in present for a verbal report. Is there any interest or observations regarding the report from Hope for Family Center? Okay. Second one is the TC Homeless Service Council. Speaking of this, I actually do think we need to have their leadership here. related to some questions we've had in the past regarding budgeting. And their report, which was included, I had a number of questions regarding the role of the rapid resolution respite. That was supposed to be post-hospital respite for up to 90 days, and it's turned out to be more than that. As I read through the report, they're using it as a shelter more than as a post-operative hospital. So I'd like to have Mr. Knuckles or other members of their team present for
He was actually going to attend. It was his verbal report, but today is their point-in-time count for the county.
Yes.
So he
Point in time, that's a big
asked if he could be rescheduled, and I just said, well, we'll give the written report and ask if, if there's any questions, so I'll make sure he comes to one of the next meetings.
Thank you very much. And then lastly, we have Tykes and Teens. Does anyone have any comments regarding the Tykes and Teens report? Once again, I think Tykes and Teens ought to come here and give a verbal report considering all that's going on with respect to their role in consolidating some of the other agencies dealing with substance abuse and the recent loss of the mental health agencies. So I think it's a very good report, but I think I'd like to know more about them and their leadership and direction.
Dr. Cooney, just for a point of clarification, you want them to come to the regular meeting, monthly meeting,
Yes.
not a chairman's meeting, right? Okay,
That'd be fine.
great, thank you.
That seems to be the best method of interacting with them. Okay, is there any unfinished business?
Well, I just have a comment from yesterday. I'm going to start out with an apology that I remained silent when we were considering the policies and procedures. I wasn't expecting to vote, and anyhow, it just was still processing. Just for clarification, if I'm asked a question about my personal view to make a comment, I'm still going to exercise that. I'm not going to express that I'm going to vote a particular way, and I would expect everybody to have the freedom to be able to do that. Because I'm speaking in my individual capacity, and quite frankly, most often those conversations start out with a phrase that kind of goes like this: I'm one of 7, and I'm frequently in the minority view, therefore, this is purely personal. So, and I endeavor to make sure that I never speak for the district or the trustees. And I have on occasion when there have been complaints or observations or whatever to direct people to Frank, whether or not they've made the call or to any agency that I get a inquiry about. Regarding the production of documents, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and a particular document comes up that's easy for me to give them, I'm going to give it to them. What I haven't been doing that I'm going to start doing is point out, if you want it in an official capacity, I'm not the guy. You need to make a public records request. But what I will not do is I've got the document in my hand. Paul, do you mind if I have a copy? No, I'm not going to give it to you. Call Kate. I won't do that. But I will point out again that if you want it officially, you need to go through official channels. So I remain silent. I had mixed thoughts about the process. I interpret it that way anyway, but because I was silent, and this is going to be something that from time to time is going to possibly present itself, I felt I probably needed to go ahead and say a few things. So I appreciate your time.
Well, Jennifer, is there any question related to that, our vote or our discussion yesterday at the,
Well, I think the intent of the policy, again, is to direct people to submit a records request for a document so that there's more of a central process and the district can respond to that on behalf of our records custodian in accordance with that policy. I mean, certainly, as I said, the documents that every one of you are in possession of are public documents. I mean, so we're not saying they're not public documents that can't be handed to your neighbor if you wanted to give them to them, or anybody for that matter. They're public. But the process typically followed for an organization like ours would be to make a public records request for a public document and take that through the records custodian.
Thank you. And like I said, what I've not been diligent about is saying you've got a choice. I've got it in my hand. If you want an official capacity, you need to do an official channel, and I'm going to be doing that.
I think where I would see the concern lies by handing something over, it might not be the official document, the last document. And the latest version, so if handing out a document that may not be the last, there could be misinformation that we're handing out to the public. That would be my biggest concern.
I was pleased, though, that we made a commitment, and
Yeah.
it's one that had even crossed my mind, that in terms of the packets that the trustees receive prior to the chairman's meetings and prior to these regularly scheduled monthly meetings are going to be on the website. They're going to be available for everybody. So, I mean, those are usually the critical documents from which we're working, unless some idiot makes a mistake and has to hand something out at the start of the meeting. But but that, I think, is just openly transparent, as we always need and want to be. But that's also just, that's another place to send them, if that's what they're looking for. So they can go back and retrieve them themselves.
Yeah, one other comment I would make, Paul, I sort of agree with your sentiment that if you've got it in your hand, why not hand it to somebody that's curious? But I do feel like you should notify, all of us do it, anytime we give a document, I think we should tell Kate as the records manager that we've done that, so she can follow up with that person to be sure they've gotten all the information they want.
Well, and again, though, the process to make that public records request should be followed. So if a public records request is followed, there are things that are triggered that she has to do. So you don't want to have her doing things when an actual public records request hasn't been made. So that's why we created the policy, to try to facilitate that process so that we can be sure we're doing what we're able to do in a timely manner and following the process all the way through, giving out the most correct document, all of those things.
Well, if that's the case, then we shouldn't be giving any documents out ourselves. So.
That is what the policy we
I don't
adopted
see it
says.
that way myself, but, okay.
Other comments? We
So
appreciate
we
it.
have a board-approved policy for dissemination of
Yes, we
information.
made that yesterday.
Okay.
I just, one quickly, just want to say something. I think what had happened in the couple cases that the documents were given is the person making the request didn't feel that I gave the documents quick enough and then sought them out a different way. And so I would just encourage everyone to continue to come to me, you know, with that. I appreciate that. And I'm happy to fulfill the request. I try to get them as quickly as we can. You know, we've had a lot going on. So that would just be great.
Thank you. Any other unfinished business? New business? Other business? We have one request for public comment from George Colon. You're welcome to speak up, come to the microphone, Mr. Colon, and
Thank you
we're
very
pleased to
much.
have you present with us.
Appreciate your time.
Please
So-
just state your full name and your address.
My full name is George Colon. I live here in Vero Beach. I've been here 43 years.
And are you here on behalf of any organization, or are you just here individually?
I'm an addiction specialist interventionist
Okay, thank you.
nationally.
Thank you.
NADAC, national, from Virginia, Washington, D.C. So I just wanted to express some concerns that I have regarding that. So being in the field 15 years, I gave this nice gentleman, he was nice enough to come and greet himself and ask me. I gave him my credentials. If you really want me to tell you what's going on in Vero, you're not going to be pleased. So I'm going to give you data. I like what Paul says. You got to have information. My family's ex-FBI DEA. With information, you can't go wrong because you got to prove it, right? So you prove the information, you prove the topics, and then you present them for facts. Do you know how many sober homes are in Vero Beach? Any of you?
Say it again, do we know?
Do you know how many sober homes are in Vero Beach? Any of you?
I think we know there are some for-profit sober homes, but none non-for-profit.
Either or. Do you know the amount?
No.
Well, I'll tell you, at least 12. Half of them are rat holes. You get, listen,
Half of them are what?
rat holes.
Thank you.
Sex trafficking, human trafficking, addiction taking place. You have people, half of them running this, that have no credentials. How do I know? When I came back from Washington, D.C. in 2021, meeting my friends regarding the fentanyl situation. I approached Sheriff Flowers and Sheriff Curry. You could talk to them, that's fine. I am very transparent, no hard feelings. I speak my truth. I said, we have to address the sober home issue. We have to address those who work in them or even attempt to even have one with no experience. It's very disconcerting. This letter, you can look it up, it's public knowledge, County Commissioners, September 9th, 2022. The sober home issue was addressed, nothing. So I talked to my friend, Derek Moltz, Acting Director of DEA, which he spoke here. I said, we need to address Vero Beach because there's a lot of fluffy people who know nothing about the field of addiction and are hurting people. I don't know about you, but I think every life is sanctity. Sanctity. When people say they know the field of addiction, they have no credentials, I dismiss everything they say. You could look, he'll give you a copy. If you need a copy, I got a bunch of them there. And what happens in Vero, you get people who get training and they get a doctorate. I'm all for that. I got one, not in the medical field. But it still doesn't make me more than that. I have to continuing education. He could see it, he saw it in my resume. People think they get a peer advocate thing and they're all of a sudden a professional addiction specialist.
You have some recommendations? I mean, your time actually is a little limited. Do you have some
I
ideas?
appreciate you saying that. I proposed this to the Sheriff's Department and Kerr. It's going to be addressed. If not, it'll be a federal issue here because I'm tired of wasting time with bureaucracy. So I approached Derek Moltz and Tom Holman, which they're pro that, good friends of mine, and I said, if Vero doesn't address it within 90 days, I highly implore your help. Also, we're going to have the support of Kennedy Now, which is dealing with the pharma. That's a whole nother issue. That's not my expertise. That's Sheila's expertise, so I'll let her handle that. So my request to you is if people don't know anything about sober homes or addiction, why are they involved? I'm going to tell you what's happening nationally. I talk to mothers who their children have been killed, murdered, sexually exploited in sober homes. It's happening here. I got the data, I got the names. Oh, by the way, the Sheriff Department has the name and Curry has the name, and nothing's been done. So I have to go talk to my federal friends. So I please implore you, if you haven't met someone who's died from exploitation, sexual abuse in the sober home industry and don't know the language, they're ill qualified, even to have one. Let's forget even contemplating one. They don't know what they're talking about. And it really saddens me that this county that I've been here 43 years.
Mr. Chair, I want to let you know we're at the 5-minute point for public comment. We're at that 5-minute limit point, so we can either conclude the public comment or you can extend if you'd like to do so.
So just a quick, can I just quickly wrap it up?
Please.
I implore you, every life is sacred. If people don't know what they're talking about, please have them have some credentials.
Well, I think that's part of the reason have proposed and have developed a women's sober living center.
Well, I can tell you that,
So-
so I don't want to get into it because like the nice lady said there, if you don't have a plan, what are you doing? And if you don't have experts that know how to propose the plan, it's doomed to fail. I've been all over the country. I've seen it. If not,
Do you have resources to offer in terms of guidance materials as we're developing our RFP?
I'd be happy to give you all my credentials. This nice gentleman has them. NADAC, Florida. I got accreditations from Virginia, Florida. These people have no credentials here in Florida. They don't have CASAC. They don't have the basics, like some basics, but they're professionals. It's very disheartening and disconcerting.
Thank you so very much.
Anything, any way I can help, be happy to.
Thank you very much for your background and knowledge in that area.
Thank you.
It is a challenge. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Last time my back was hurting here.
I'm Sheila, I'm with Able Child, and I too want to address the sober house. I strongly oppose it, and I would like to see it repurposed to support medical students that are coming in for the new training hospital. I think you should abandon the sober living idea because it lacks scientific evidence in getting women sober in the medical model that you're using. I noticed throughout the presentations on mental health that you do, like last meeting you had the Mental Health Association give you statistics on suicides. And those statistics did not include the pharmaceutical aspect of suicides, which are on the black box suicide warnings on antidepressants. All your outcomes in the mental health reports in these organizations you're funding do not separate how many people are getting onto these psychiatric drugs. That's something that your board should be doing. Is when you fund these organizations, you can strip the identity. You don't have to give who's on, who's taking the psychiatric drugs, but it's not just giving access. It's a part of human rights to get an exit plan for people that are receiving mental health. So the association that stood before you last meeting gave you very false information about the statistics on suicide. So that is something that I'm really concerned about. Your outcome measurements do not include any statistics of, it appears that nobody's died in Indian River from psychiatric drugs. You don't break that down at all. You're just giving all this funding and you're not classifying the deaths associated with the use of psychiatric drugs. They increase the risk of suicide. So the sober house that you're planning is a big concern for me because, number one, I do believe you're going to be using a medical model, which, no medical model, Frank? There's no psychiatric drugs?
I'm sorry, I didn't say.
You're shaking your head, so I just was wondering. And then I just was wondering, you talk about the RFP. What are the names of the two consultants? Excuse me? What are the names of the two consultants that you're going to be using? I think the public has a right to know, so we could look at these consultant histories, what other facilities and behavioral health companies that they are involved in. So the other thing is this is very important, is promoting MedWatch. I saw in 32963 that the hospital came out and did a nice PR about all the bad press that they're getting with the purchase of this property. I don't see any of the issues being addressed of the Baker Act that was conducted or the legal action against Cleveland Clinic regarding the stabbing that took place with a mental patient in the facility. What I would like to see and what I would recommend is that you start supporting MedWatch, that the hospital starts supporting MedWatch, that the RFPs include MedWatch. Training, what is MedWatch? Do any of you know what MedWatch is? MedWatch is the adverse reporting system that consumers use in the aftermarket of psychiatric drugs. Some of these patients are on multiple drugs that have never been tested. You have multiple drugs being interacted. It's not all cognitive behavior. Frank
Mr.
read
Chair,
a
we're at the
beau-
5-minute point.
Sure, I'll
You can
wrap it
either
up. Last time you cut
continue
me
or-
off, excuse me, last time you cut me off, so, and I didn't go 5 minutes last time. We need to know how many people you are getting on psychiatric drugs and what is the exit plan. My organization is going to be working with Bobby Kennedy, and there is an executive order,
And you can either extend or we can conclude the public comment. We're at 5.5 minutes now.
Okay, well, I'll take the 2 minutes that you cut me off last time. I'm-
Ma'am, you can't add the time from last time,
Well,
but
you
certainly
cut
the
me
board can
off-
determine if you'd like
Okay,
to
well,
extend or not.
okay, well, I appreciate, I think that I do have to
We can go to
say,
recess.
I do have to say that it is very hostile when I come up here and I talk about human rights and mental health. There is not one penny that is being spent on informing the public of adverse events of these psychiatric programs that you are approving at an alarming rate. I'm happy to help, but do not cut me off and treat me as though I don't know what I'm talking about, because I do.
We appreciate what you're doing. We really do. We have some rules all related to
Okay.
time constraints, and you're welcome to come back at another time and present or
Sure.
directly deal with us through
Okay.
Frank.
And
Please.
Sheila, we do measure outcomes, and if I'm hearing you correctly, we need to add, in your opinion, some dimension to that, those measurable outcomes that might include the duration of psychiatric medications, the exit strategies for the beginning of the treatment plan, some more qualitative as opposed to just quantitative elements are what you're suggesting, if I could kind of summarize it for you a little bit.
Right, and you want to make sure you could strip the identities. Are you getting people more onto psychiatric drugs? Are you getting them off? Because that is a concern with the DEA, because these are controlled substances as well. So yes, I appreciate that, and I would love for the RFP consultants to be made public so we can investigate that.
Thank you.
Again,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Thank you, Sheila.
Is there any other public comment from anyone on Zoom or otherwise? Okay, I think our meeting is adjourned. On time.